I will call the meeting to order at 10 a.m. and the first order of business is election of the MPC chair and vice chair. So I will open it up and accept nominations for chair of Municipal Planning Commission.
I apologize for this, Matt. Can we just give it 2 seconds for the recording to start?
Sure. Sorry, Todd.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. So again, I will open it up and accept nominations for chair of the Municipal Planning Commission.
I nominate Kelly Crispin.
Nominates Kelly. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations for the third time? I declare nominations cease and Councillor Kelly Crispin as chair of Municipal Planning Commission. Do you accept, Kelly?
I accept. I'll give it a try. Thank you.
Congratulations. So we'll turn it over to the chair of MPC to accept nominations for vice chair.
Good morning, everyone. I will call 3 times for nominations for vice chair for the MPC committee. Nominations, please. Holly?
I nominate Ellen Unruh.
Any other nominations? Adina? Councillor Skander?
I nominate Holly Johnson.
I'll call a 3rd time. Oh, Holly?
What kind of time commitment is this? I'm not really familiar with it.
So we meet prior to every council meeting. Our staff brings us the information, and it's our jobs to chair the meetings. I'll call a 3rd time for nominations. Final. I declare nominations closed. We'll now vote on the 2 nominations.
Holly, go forward. Go
Oh.
forward.
Ellen, you're declining the nomination?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Holly Johnson, you are declared, I declare you vice chair of MPC. Thank you. All right, we will carry on with the meeting. I see everybody is here, so no excuse from the meeting required. Minutes from the last meeting, how do you wish to handle them? I would entertain a motion or edits to the minutes, please. Go ahead. Amanda makes a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Call the vote. All in favor? Those are carried. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda at this point? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to accept. Greg?
I accept the motion to accept.
Motion to approve?
Yeah, to approve.
All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Okay, Shanna Lee, you have presented a permitted use report. Did you want to speak to it or open for questions? Okay. Are there any questions on the permitted use report? These are, this is a monthly report that is provided to MPC, showing what the department has approved as per our bylaw. No questions, then a motion to accept for information. Ellen, thank you. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Subdivisions. Maria, good morning.
Good morning, thank you. I'll just pull up the map. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This is subdivision 2021-0-015. The proposal is to subdivide a 6.91 hectare parcel, which is approximately 7 acres, from the southwest of 262118 to create a new parcel for residential and agricultural use. The subject land is located 5 kilometers northeast of the town of Bisano in Division 6. The lands are currently used for grazing and consist of grassland and bush. There is no irrigation on this quarter section of land currently. The proposed subdivision will be the first parcel out of the quarter section. In the county subdivision bylaw 2018-21, the subdivision authority may approve one subdivision on an unsubdivided quarter within the agriculture general land use district. The proposed uses on the subject parcel are permitted as per the county land use bylaw in the agriculture general district as well. This subdivision does fall within the intermunicipal development plan boundary area with the town of Bisano. So we did circulate it to the IDP committee and administration in Bisano, and there were no comments heard back from them. The applicant has supplied a septic suitability report with the application, and the soils on the proposed subdivision will allow for a PSDS system, which is a private sewage disposal system, to be installed. And the type of system that will be installed will be decided at the time of development, and will have to meet the Alberta Safety Code's requirements at that time. Information has been submitted from the Alberta Energy regulators indicating that there is an abandoned well on the proposed subdivision. The applicant is aware of this, and he will be required to provide written confirmation that the licensee responsible for that well has been contacted and the exact location of that well has been confirmed. There are some required setbacks from the AER based on the location of abandoned wells, and no development can happen within 5 meters of an abandoned well. So he does still have an area that he can build on with that located on the proposed subdivision. There was a review of the Alberta wetland inventory, and it indicated that there are wetlands located within that subdivision. The applicant will be required to follow the Alberta wetland policy and other applicable provincial and federal policy when developing on the subject lands. There are no environmental or historical significant areas on the proposed subdivision or the remainder of the quarter section. So this application was circulated to all the required referral agencies and the adjacent landowners. There were no objections from adjacent landowners at the time that I submitted, but we did receive one letter, which I will read after, from an adjacent landowner. And Fortis Alberta did send a response that they determined that no easement is required, and the developer will be required to contact them at the time that they require service to discuss their electrical needs. So the letter from the adjacent landowner, I'll I'll just read it if you'd like, so that you're aware of the concerns. To the County of Newell Planning and Development, it has been brought to our attention that a potential subdivision, Southwest Quarter Section 26-21-18-4, is being proposed directly south of our current land location by Tanner McComb. We do have a few concerns with the proposed subdivision. We share both the east-west fence line, which is where the proposed entry is labeled. That being said, the proposed entry or panhandle could affect the wetland that is on our land location, especially on a wet year. This is a concern for us, as part of this wetland would be where an entry road would be built and possible power line. Next, our current view from our farmyard is free of any power lines running west to east, other than on the main gravel road, Township Road 214. To look out into our pasture yard, to have a power line running west to east blocking this absolutely magnificent view will truly be saddening and permanent. We planned our house and built our whole farmyard around this beautiful view. Can the entry panhandle of the proposed subdivision run on the north-south fence line of the Township Road 214 to alleviate any wetland and power line concerns on our shared property line? We by no means are opposed to development in the county, just have concerns with the aspects mentioned on the subdivision bordering our farm land and farm. Thank you for your time and the consideration in our concerns. So I did speak to the adjacent landowner, and then she submitted this letter. So municipal reserve is something that we need to consider for every subdivision that's presented to the municipality. In this case, municipal reserve is not required or not applicable because this is the first lot being created out of the quarter section. So that's an exemption that is indicated in the MGA. So staff is recommending that MPC approve the subdivision because the proposed subdivision is consistent with the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan and complies with the County of Newell and Town of Bizano Intermunicipal Development Plan, the Municipal Development Plan, and the Land Use Bylaw. And the recommendation is based on the subdivision authority being satisfied with the proposed subdivision and its suitability. And I'm willing to answer any questions.
Neil, go ahead.
You didn't mention anything about surface water irrigation. Is that a condition of a subdivision? Because it's not much without it.
There is no irrigation currently on that quarter section. The applicant has indicated that he would be looking at the potential of irrigation in the future, which is why he's aligned the subdivision as he has, but there is no irrigation currently. And actually the applicant is here if there's any questions for him directly.
What about a domestic?
You're shut off, Neil, if you can turn your mic on. So there we go.
No, the water is pretty important because there's a few of those little subdivisions sitting around that are dry. I have one right beside me, and now the girl's sitting there. What do I do? Where if it had been a condition before, she could have dealt with the EID years ago, taken care of it, and alleviated all this stuff 10 years down the road.
And that is a great question for the applicant, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Sure, if you'd like to defer.
Hello,
Tanner.
can everyone hear me?
Hi, Tanner, welcome.
Hi. Yeah, so I was gonna put a cistern in and haul water, but I could also drill a well for water is also what I was thinking, if that answers your question on that.
Neil, does that satisfy? I think you were thinking a little larger than home use, weren't you?
Yeah, like what do they call it, domestic or whatever. The EID has those agreements all over the place.
I think the question, if I can rephrase it a little bit, Tanner, I think the question is, have you reached out to the EID to inquire about water for other purposes, other than domestic use?
Yes, I have. So, like, obviously there's nothing in place, but I have questioned them on it, and it would be possible to get it in there. Yeah, I don't know what else I can say about it, but.
Thank you for that. Neil, does that satisfy your question? You're shut off again, Neil, and we really want to hear your comments.
Am I on now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look for the little red.
I think it should be a condition of a subdivision to take care of the domestic water needs. But, I mean, like I just said, you can't even grow a tree without some kind of water, and I don't know. It's the applicant's choice, I guess.
Well, yes. It is also MPC's decision, Neil, just so you know. My question, and I don't know if you may have touched on it, Maria, can you clarify on the application it says open discharge for sewer. Is that allowable in 21st century? I don't know the regulations, please.
An open discharge system is a system that can happen at the very end of all the options. And when we talk about an open discharge system, it's not a straight pipe from the house out. There's a holding tank that holds the solids, and then the gray water is let out at a certain distance from any residences and property lines. So while the applicant has indicated that that would be the PSDS method on his application, that would have to be approved by Alberta's safety codes, and that's not necessarily the route that would be taken. He would have to meet all the setback requirements and get inspections done.
Go ahead, Holly.
Was it explored to take a different access into the property to assist the adjacent landowners, their concerns?
Yes, we have actually discussed several different options. The applicant has indicated that coming in on the east side of the property, there's another wetland there that is, I guess, more difficult to build through. So this is ultimately what his best case scenario for him and his development wants. When it comes to the power line, unfortunately, the municipality really doesn't have the ability to dictate where utilities that are not county owned go. And Fortis, I'm not sure if they've discussed it or not, but I'm not sure that that's even where the power line would go.
Go ahead, Dan.
Question for the homeowner. I couldn't tell from the satellite picture. Where does the power line currently run? Is it on the north-south road or the east-west road?
Go ahead, Tanner.
Okay. There's a power line on both, actually. Going up on the west side of the property, there's a 3-phase power line, and there's a single phase going east on that other road. But kind of from before, like if I was to put an access going straight north up into it along the east access, or property line, sorry. If I was to put a pivot up there, then that would interfere with that as well. So that's why I feel like that is kind of the best spot for my access to be, and to utilize the maximum amount of irrigation acres once I get that far.
Thank you.
Tanner, or actually Maria, my question's for you. In our conditions, we don't say anything about Alberta Environment or wetlands approvals. Could that not be a condition, or should that not be a condition?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That could be a condition that we request the developer to issue us a letter or approval based on the Alberta wetland policy. That could happen. That could also happen at the time of development when he, if and when he decides when to put his house in. But that could definitely be a condition of subdivision, yeah.
Any other questions from MPC? Dan?
If we were to put a condition on wetland approval for that, wouldn't it'd be better to do it now in a subdivision than to wait, subdivide it, but then in a development permit find out that it doesn't work and we've got a subdivision that needs to be redrawn, right? So if we'd be looking out for the homeowner's best interest by requiring it at subdivision stage rather than waiting for a surprise at development stage. Would that make sense or no?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Yeah. Any further questions? Arno.
Madam Chairman, I guess I have a question with regard to the recommendation from staff to go ahead with this. If that was material or standard practice with regard to a subdivision, that would be in place, wouldn't it? I mean, it's a standard to get that approval prior to a building permit as a subdivision permit, right? Am I correct to assume that, or? You know, I don't expect there was an oversight with regard to the recommendation to approve this subdivision.
So forgive me if I am not getting all the information. So then ask again. But so on this quarter section of land being zoned Ag General, the applicant would have the ability to build a house on it without the subdivision. So that's one thing to consider. And then if he were to build a house and a road at the time of development, then we would also indicate that there's a wetland there and he would have to go through the Alberta wetland policy. So the draft resolution that is on your agenda now can definitely be added and amended. So to add a condition to this being that Alberta environment approval is required can definitely happen. And does that answer? Kind of?
Yes, I think that, I mean, it wasn't an oversight for it not to be recommended as a condition of approval. It just isn't standard practice. Is that correct? And I say that for my own education. I'm not familiar with the process, so yeah.
Yeah, I guess in the past it hasn't, well, this honestly doesn't come up very often. So in this case, because it's a provincial legislation, it would be the developer's responsibility to do that. And if he doesn't get that Alberta environment approval, or if he goes against the Alberta wetland policy, then it would be Alberta Environment that would go through the process of making sure that it was done the way they would like. but I think it's probably wise for a municipality to work with the provincial government and ensure that the developer is aware of everything that is required of them. So I think that that would be a reasonable condition to add.
I don't know if it's just the fact that I'm unfamiliar with all of this. You said he could build a house there the way it's zoned right now. Why are we dealing with a subdivision then? Like, I thought that there, like through the county, there's kind of policies to try and keep things together and not just subdivide everything. So why the subdivision if it wouldn't be necessary?
Maria, would you like Tanner to answer? Tanner, go ahead. Did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. So currently, the land is owned by my company. So really, I would have to build a house on it right now and pay for it, like the company would pay to build it, sort of thing. And then I would pay, I guess, like kind of like a rental sort of thing to it, right, into my company to pay for it is kind of how that would work. But then down the road, if I ever sold or whatever, then you would have to pay capital gains on that, like big time. There would be no personal benefit, I guess, to that. So it just doesn't really make sense for me to do it that way, I feel. I think that kind of helps answer that.
Thank you, Tanner. MPC, how do you wish to handle this application? Dan?
If we wanted to add an amendment to that, to make a condition that he meets the Alberta Environment Regulations, would that mean, would we have to make a motion to make that amendment and then, or do we leave that up to the development
You can
officers?
You can make that motion with the addition. Yeah. Okay. And then staff adds that to, yeah.
Well, like I said before, it's whenever you build that road, you're going to have to meet those requirements anyways. So I think requiring you meet that now, I think helps you out in the long run. So I'll make a motion to amend the recommendation to approve to add the compliance with Alberta Environment Regulations for wetlands and as such. I hope you know how to say it better than I do.
Are there any further comments or questions before I call the question? Arnold.
Madam Chairman, I would like to hear from the landowner with regard to his are there concerns about that kind of a condition being placed on this from the landowner's perspective? I guess my basic position is that with land ownership, there needs to be as many privileges as are possible within the context of reason. So I would like to hear from the landowner to see how, if that would negatively affects his application and the conditions, if that condition is a concern for the landowner.
Tanner, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. I don't think that would be a concern for me to have that condition. I think that's all I have on that.
Thank you, Tanner. Arno, you're satisfied with that?
I am, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. We have a motion to approve as amended. All in favor? That is carried. Tanner, thank you for attending. Your input was valuable, and have a great day.
You bet. You guys too as well. Thank you.
We'll move along to 9.1, development permits. Shannalee. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Maria.
No, sorry, Madam Chair. I thought that I would just maybe take the opportunity quickly to run through what happens now with this subdivision with the addition of that condition. So now that the subdivision has been approved, these conditions need to be met prior to the finalization of the subdivision. So the applicant has a year to make sure that he has the required letter from the licensee for the abandoned well and has discussed his plan with Alberta Environment. Then they'll work with the Alberta Land Surveyor to get the final survey completed. They will submit everything to the county, will review, ensure that everything has been done correctly and the way that it was approved by MPC. And then we issue the final endorsement so that it can be registered at Land Titles. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. That's good information to have. And MPC, I think we responded to both concerns. We heard from a neighbor. We heard her concerns or their concerns, and we also approved a subdivision in the meantime. So I think we did our due diligence. Great conversation. Thank you for that. We'll move along to development permits, 9.1. Shanna Lee.
Good morning. Development permit 2021088 is an application to establish a meal preparation business. The business will operate with 2 resident employees and no non-resident employees. There'll be no vehicles or outdoor storage. The structure that will contain the business was constructed and approved in 2019. The portion of the building that will be used for the business is 490 square feet. At the time of the construction of the building, a new septic system was installed to service the dwelling and the new shop. The applicants expect to be open for business 4 days a week when product is required. However, the applicants plan to deliver the majority of the products with approximately 10 customers per week for pickup. There will be no gathering or consuming food on site. The applicants have been in contact with Alberta Health Services and they require an inspection and approval from Alberta Health Services prior to opening their business. There was no response from adjacent landowners. There was no issues from staff. We are recommending approval with conditions, and the applicants are in attendance virtually to answer questions.
Who is here on behalf of the application? Did you want to add anything to that? We may not have volume on that end. MPC, do you have any questions for Shanna Lee? And we'll check back in with the landowners, the applicants in a minute. No questions? Okay. Entertain a motion. Neil, go ahead.
I'd move that we approve this application.
With conditions? Yep. Neil moves approval with conditions. Any further questions? All in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thank you to the applicants for tuning in. We will carry on, Shanna Lee, to the next development permit.
Thank you. Development permit 2021093 is for the construction of a 2,520 square foot accessory building and approval of an existing garage and shop. The rural residential district of the land use bylaw requires anything over 1,507 square feet in size to be reviewed by the Municipal Planning Commission for approval. There's no variances requested by the applicant. There is an existing garage on the parcel that It was constructed in approximately 2001, according to assessment records, and a shop that was constructed in 1980, approximately before there was a land use bylaw. The applicant has provided photos of the buildings. They're included in your package. The applicants are planning to use the proposed shop for storage of equipment, tools, and vehicles. There was no response from adjacent landowners. There's no issues or concerns from staff, and we're recommending approval with conditions.
Any questions on the application? How do you wish to handle the application? Go ahead, Arno.
I move that we accept this application with conditions as per the recommendation of staff.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? That is carried. Carrying on, Shanalee.
Thank you. Development permit 2021094 is to establish an apiary business. The parcel is located in the Bazzano Intermunicipal Development Area and was reviewed by their committee. The business will operate with one resident employee and no non-resident employees. There'll be no additional structures added to the parcel or removed. Anyone owning bees is required to register annually with the province. However, the Act doesn't control how many colonies can be on a parcel of land or how close they can be to their neighbors. The business will not have any customer visits. All product will be delivered. The applicant currently operates a business in the city of Calgary and plans to have 50 beehives at the proposed location. The beehives will be located at the north of the parcel. There is an air photo in your package showing the location. There was no issues or concerns from staff. There was 3 letters submitted from adjacent landowners in your package. The town of Bazzano had no issues or concerns. We have provided 2 options, an option to approve with conditions, an option to refuse. Another option would be to approve and add additional conditions to satisfy the adjacent landowners. And Miss Yano is here to answer questions.
Hello.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How's everybody? Thank you for having me. So Pam gave me the letters here, and I'm actually just reading them today. So it was a bit of a surprise to see that 3 out of 5 of the neighbors are a little concerned. But what I'm seeing in these letters is that they're coming from a place of fear. I've been beekeeping for 10 years. I've kept hundreds of hives in the city of Calgary at the East Village location where there's probably 4,000 people that live in that area. They're all at ground level. That apiary is a 5-hive apiary. Other places like Highfield Regenerative Farm, which is in the city, I've got about 12 beehives in that location. And throughout the years, nobody has ever been stung. So yes, I'm just here to answer any questions that you guys might have about the letters.
Amanda.
Well, welcome, Ms. Yano. I really commend your endeavors. It can be quite a feat. I do, however, have some questions for you, though.
Amanda, I need you to speak right into the microphone. I know it's invasive, but it helps the online viewers hear you better as well.
First of all, I would like to say communication is key with your neighboring landowners. Second of all, I would like to know water supply and food supply. Is that going to be available to those bees, or are they going to have to fly elsewhere?
Yeah, so just a bit of a beekeeping basics. So inside of the colony, there's going to be, maybe in spring, there might be 10,000 bees in spring, and over the season, that colony is going to grow to maybe up to 60, 70,000 bees, but only 10% of those bees will actually leave to forage. Honeybees really prefer abundance, so a lot of the concerns here of the residents is that they are going to see an influx of bees in their gardens and on their pasture and whatnot. But what I'm familiar with and what I've really seen over the years, because I'm always in places with gardens, you see the native bees. So there's probably 200 native bee species in Alberta. So we're seeing those big bumblebees and those leaf cutters and masons. They really prefer very specific flowers and a lot of the flowers that are in people's gardens. But honeybees prefer canola and alfalfa. The only time I ever really see them on your garden is going to be when there's a dearth. Dearth just means lack of nectar flow. So those dearth periods are in early spring and late in fall. So what they're feeding on is nectar, and then they synthesize that and they create honey. So I always leave them 80 to 100 pounds to survive, those dearth periods. And the other source that they forage on is pollen. So pollens they'll mostly get from the trees. And then for water source, I always have a big, like a big basin or drum or even a shallow bowl is sufficient enough for the hives in my apiaries. And again, half of my hives are in the city of Calgary in backyards, and everybody has a dog, water dishes, pools, etc. I've never received a complaint about bees swarming their water dishes because I provide them those sources.
Will you be wintering them there?
Yes.
And you say 50 hives?
So I actually own 100 hives, but as I was saying, half my business is, all of my business is in Calgary. So I supply restaurants and markets with honey, and then the other portion is beehive sponsorships and bee tours. So I'll be keeping a lot, because I want to keep my ties in the city, because there's lots of people there I can sell my product to. And I've developed these relationships over many years, so I will be keeping most of my hives in Calgary, because I already have those apiaries established, and I don't plan to move them. The hives that are actually going on the property, I plan to buy what's called a nucleus package. So you get these tiny boxes filled with maybe 5 frames of bees, and then they slowly grow throughout the years. So I could definitely, I'm very flexible. I really just want to live in Newell County. So I'm willing to reduce the amount that stay on the property just to make my neighbors happy, because it's a very small and tight community, and I would like to befriend these people.
Thank you.
Holly.
I'm quite familiar with bees because everyone has Scandia honeybees on their property in Scandia. So how far are they flying for their alfalfa or canola? I'm not seeing any pivots near. So how far is our cropland
where bees will forage?
Where your property is?
Yeah.
I don't know the area at all. So are you surrounded by crops? You're surrounded by prairie?
I'm not actually sure what crops are around there, but I have heard from just other beekeepers that I know that there are certainly lots of alfalfa crops around there. One of my largest apiaries in Balzac, actually, I've got 25 hives there, and you actually don't really see much much crop there, but I can tell that they're foraging on something because it's full of honey by July and August. They'll travel 5 to 10 kilometers in search of food. So their radius is very, very far. So I'm not really concerned about what is within the proximity of even that, like a 20, my 7 acre radius. So.
And where do you plan to process the honey?
There's a shop that's there. Currently I extract and process the honey in a little, the honey mobile. So I have a little cargo trailer, 18-foot cargo trailer that I converted into a honey house. So it's all powered up by generator and stuff like that. But the shop that's on the property has power running to it. So I would just move the extractor inside, and there's some slight modifications I plan on doing to the shop, just adding running water and putting in a drain system. But I am in the process of just getting funding from AFSC, and they won't approve anything until I get the letter from the county. So, and I obviously want to do everything correctly, so.
Amanda, you spoke about your swarming protocol. Can you tell me about that?
Oh yeah, so honeybees, as I said, they start off really small in their colonies in spring, 10,000 bees, grow, 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 grow. The queen's going to be laying maybe 2,000 eggs a day. Those bees are hatching out every 21 days. Their gestation is actually pretty long for an insect with our short seasons. But when you have an established colony, so maybe a 2 or 3 year colony, their populations can expand a lot sooner in spring. So as soon as you start seeing basically dandelions on the ground, beekeepers are in preparation for swarm all the way until July. So swarming just means that 50% of the bees are going to leave, and how they do that is pretty interesting. Scout bees will go out in really long distances, 10 kilometers, in search of homes. They track that information, the dimensions of a space, and they take that information home to the hive, and they relay that through what's called a waggle dance, with like a vibration and stuff like that. And then the colony makes a democratic decision, and then they decide on where they're going to go, because based on resources that are nearby and the cavity size, and if the entrance is facing south. So that's what they do, but as beekeepers, we know that we prevent the swarms from happening, and you can see certain signs inside of the hive. The first sign would be like backfilling honey into those where the queen's supposed to be laying her eggs. The second sign would be actually seeing queen cells being developed on the bottom of the frames. And then I guess my mitigation in that is just to give them more space. And then I make my own splits, or maybe I might pinch a queen to stop her from leaving. Because in the swarm situation, the old queen goes to the new location, and then the current colony will create a new queen. Just by, yeah, it's complicated. It's hard for me to not go on and on about how amazing they are.
All right, thank you. Amanda, you're good?
I do know in the city of Brooks, or in the area, when it's a courtesy, and just a courtesy, when you're putting bees in farm yards to pollinate the trees or their garden, it's usually only 2 hives. How did you come up with 50?
Well, in the city, because I have large apiaries, the largest one in the city is 12 hives, and that's with many neighbors and businesses nearby. Out in, I've got a bit larger apiaries out at Happiness by the Acre Farm in Carstairs, Shirley's Greenhouse in Didsbury, the Balzac Farm. These are all 20, 25 hive apiaries. How I came to the number of 50? Well, I actually wanted 100, so I thought 50 would be less than 100, but since I'm going to plan on living out there, I thought it would be a convenience for me to have most of my hives out there, and then I could do better pest management and just better management having them close to home, with also understanding the complexities of, having that many more bees in the location and understanding their behavior. And also, in my 10 years experience, I feel like they wouldn't be an issue to the surrounding neighbors. You would only ever see that many bees in that area if you were actually inside that apiary surrounded by them. Even 20 feet away, they just start to disperse because they're all going out and foraging. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have you talked to surrounding beekeepers about bringing in, like, where are your bees from, so we don't have any problems with diseases, or?
I haven't talked to any beekeepers in the area, but I know in Calgary, the beekeeping community is very close, and I hope that I can have conversations with beekeepers in the Newell area. I don't think that competition for floral sources would be an issue.
Ms. Yano, can I just ask you to address the chair? Your conversation is with the chair. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I took it as long as I could.
Sure.
So thank you for that answer. Amanda, any further questions?
No, there's not.
Thank you. Good questions.
Hi. I think one thing we really want to see in the county of Newell is growth, development. Things like this could lead into good things for everyone. It'll work for you. It'll work for us. And it sounds like you have it's not a niche market, because I know there's plenty of honeybees around here, but it's more commercial operation what's here now. Yours seems more like I don't know, what you call it, like a craft type.
It's just beyond hobby.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm just this year doing it full time. Yeah. Yes.
And you to me as well. Great.
So part of what you're doing might be bringing people in to see the bees and show stuff like that. Is that right?
So I actually won't be bringing people in to the property. So no customers, not even for tours or anything. No honey sales will be happening on the property. Most of my business is online, mobhoney.com. So I will just be doing my deliveries in town, and like I said, keeping those apiaries intact in Calgary. So I will be going into Calgary maybe 2 or 3 times a week to do my bee tours and honey sales.
Thank you. I do have a question around, after being here today and hearing some of the questions, do you feel your application may be premature at all? We have these letters from neighbors. We have maybe bee companies or bee farmers in the area that haven't been contacted yet. How do you feel about?
I don't think it's premature. These, the questions that the neighbors had are pretty common in the beekeeping industry. People have an innate fear of bees. A lot of people even confuse honeybees with wasps. And that's why I love doing the bee tours so much, is because I can bring in people who have that fear, and then when they're done the tour, they're just amazed at how gentle and docile they are. In regards to the other beekeepers in the area, that's just not something that I considered, because I didn't think it was going to be a conflict of interest. My operation is so small compared to the commercial apiaries in this area. Scandia, for example, has maybe 8,000, 10,000 hives, which are spread out throughout the entire county. So,
yeah. Thank you for that. So, MPC, Dan.
My question was going to be whether or not you could start small, like on a much smaller scale, to maybe appease your neighbors. Obviously, nothing's going to happen this time of year with the bees, but if you could start out small to show your neighbors there's nothing to worry about, maybe to let them see that, okay, that their fears aren't justified, and then grow from there. Would that still work for the business?
Absolutely. Yes. I'm extremely flexible with that. I would love the opportunity to start small and just kind of prove to everybody that they're not going to have issues with them. Another example in some of these letters, people have horses. For example, the neighbor just to the west of my property, they have a couple horses, they say. But I've had many apiaries with horses, and horses are very curious, just as cows are. And whenever I'm beekeeping, they always come up and say hello, and they'll linger for maybe 10 or 20 minutes, and then they leave. But I've never seen a horse get stung.
Okay. Greg.
Question for you. Thanks for the education, by the way. That's great. One question I have for the guest is, You were talking about number of hives as per the distance towards the neighbors and for the size of parcel that you own. Just wondering, what is the maximum that you're allowed to have? Is there a legislation on that with the apiaries, or what is the largest?
I think it depends on each municipality. In the city, for example, I don't think that actually there is a limit on the hives, but it is your duty to, like, number one, register your hives, which they are. All of my hives are registered provincially. And then the next duty of care would be to talk to your neighbors. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay. I wish you had door knocked to the neighbors, just FYI.
I actually did door knock, and I gave them bags of honey with a letter.
Okay.
And no one reached out. I left my contact information there.
Okay. Good information for us, Ms. Yano. Thank you.
Yes.
I do know the area very well. It's native grassland. They're going to have to fly probably 3 hours to the east to find a hayfield, the closest hayfield. It's 3 hours, three kilometers. Slow flyers, I guess. 3 kilometers to the east to the closest, and probably 5 kilometers to the north to the closest hayfield. But you said that they will go up to 10 kilometers. So MPC, where are you at with this? We should be able to make a decision by now, hey? We have 2 options in front of us, thanks staff. They each go either direction. And as staff said, you can also add conditions or changes to those options. Greg.
I'm just wondering if I'm just expanding on Councillor Short's comments on it in regards to starting smaller and then working your way up. I'm just wondering if it would work, or if we could put a condition on there as an additional condition to have the maximum size of, say, 10 hives be reviewed to 25 and then be reviewed to 50. To go into a 50 right off the bat might be something that I think it's important to keep it smaller so that we can see what the impact it is on the neighbors, and hopefully that will satisfy the concerns of the neighbors to start smaller and then work up. I'm wondering if that's a condition that we could put on.
I will put you on the spot and ask you if that's your motion.
Yeah, sure. My motion would be to approve the application with the conditions that are set by the municipality right now, plus adding a condition of say 10 and then working forward to increasing the size at a later date.
And staff, okay. Shanalee.
Thank you. So we can add a condition on the permit that there can be no more than 10 hives, and approve it as that. And then she would come back after she's decided how her business is going to go, and then she would come back and reapply to add more hives on a separate development permit.
Dan.
Can we add to that the reapplication can't happen until after a season is passed?
Yeah. Yep, you can add your conditions. Would you be okay with that, Councillor?
I would, yes.
I think this is a lot of conditions and a lot of red tape for a very small application. I've got 10 or 15 hives right in the yard that we live at, maybe 200 yards from the house. ADJOURN puts them there. And it's no big deal. They're harmless. And 10 hives is pretty small when she's looking at 100. That just cut her business by 90%. So I would not support the motion to put all those conditions on.
Okay, Dan, I see your hand.
The issue is the current neighbors they have concerns. Then if we allow it, if there are no valid concerns, I've never lived beside that many bees, I don't know. I'll take your word for it that it's not an issue, but if there are indeed valid concerns, then these neighbors say, I want to leave. Now, new neighbors want to come in, and they're like, oh, but there's all this bee problem. Whether it does or not, I don't know, but let's say that did decrease property value. So we have to look out for the applicant. We also have to look out for the other landowners that are adjacent. And that's why I feel like if we started small, it would prove to the neighbors that are there that it's good, and then we can proceed with a normal operation once the concerns are proven to be invalid.
Thank you. Just a minute, Neil. We'll go with Maria first. I saw her hand. Okay.
There is the option to do a temporary permit. Okay. So you can put a timeline on the permit, and whatever number MPC decides, whether it's the full amount or half or whatever MPC decides, and then at the time that that permit expires, then you could discuss how it went at that point. That is always an option.
Okay, thank you for that. Ellen.
For the applicant, how far is your property away from the horse farm of the 550? Yes.
Yeah. I don't know kilometers, but when I'm driving, I think it's just under 10 minutes.
No, there's a horse neighbor right on the fence line, Ellen. Is that the one you're asking about?
Yeah, you know that big
oh, you're house? Thinking the stallion station?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's about 5 kilometers north.
That far?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's two motor acres, right? Is there not 2 of them? Because I thought that was right across the road.
Yeah, no, they're further into the south end of the Moto Acres.
Okay, thank you.
This property.
Okay.
Well, we have a motion, MPC. Do you want me to call the question? Are there any edits to the motion? Ellen has a question.
Would you repeat the motion, please?
It has been moved that we accept option 1 with an addition that it be limited to 10, is what I heard. Okay, that is the motion. I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion? Okay, 1, 2, hold your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're a split vote. Okay, so the motion is defeated. So we will entertain another motion. Is there another motion by MPC?
I would move that, it's hard to pick this number, like,
yeah.
We took her from 100 to 10, 50.
The application is for 50, I believe, Neil. So.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so you are moving that we, option 1, basically, in our package.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Any further discussion? All in favor of Neil's motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is carried. Okay. That motion is carried. And I never heard an edit for a timeline or anything, so that discussion was good, but we didn't go there with the motion. Okay, Ms. Yano, thank you for your education today, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you for having me.
MPC, we will carry on here quickly. I know we're backed up with our council meeting. That concludes our development permits, correct, Shanalee? We have information. Oh, other business. Is there anything you want to cover there with us, Shanalee?
Hello. So there's two communications towers that are proposed for the county in two different locations. They've held their, like, you wanted me to make this quick?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so they both held their public meeting. Only one person had attended a meeting, and he did not have any concerns. So we're recommending that that MPC gives concurrence for both towers.
Any questions? Yes.
I was going to make a motion.
Thank you.
That we approve Rogers Telecommunications application 5931 and 5932.
Are you okay with both in one motion? Thank you. Any further questions? All in favor? That is carried. Any post-agenda items? Any in-camera? Any questions for our staff from MPC? I adjourn the meeting.